Thousands of them packed together, huge faces distorted by beaks and snouts, heads with horns or feathered crests, shoulders, side-curved swords and spiked axes, hooked spears and barbed tridents, a seemingly endless sea of cruel weapons. Behind them, Murgrel galloped up and down on midnight horses, raven black cloaks hanging undisturbed as they whirled their mounts. Arisam! Interesting, Baron murmured. Baron would not have thought that was the word. This was the first time the Trollocs had shouted anything understandable. Not that he had any idea what it meant. Smoothing his marriage ribbon, he forced himself to ride calmly to the center of the Two Rivers line. The companions formed behind him, the breeze lifting the banner with its red wolf head. Aram had his sword out in both hands. "Be ready," Aaron called. His voice was steady. I believed it. Arisam! And the black tide rolled forward, howling wordlessly. He was safe. Nothing else mattered. He would not let himself see the faces of the men stretched out to either side of him. Those same howls drifting from the south. Both sides at once. They had never tried that before. Mayu was safe. At 400 paces. All along the ranks, bows rose together. Closer the howling mass came, long thick legs eating ground. Closer. Loose! The snap of bowstrings was lost in the Trolloc war, but a goose-fledged hail streaked the sky as it arced out, plunged down the black moon board. Stones from the catapults erupted in fiery balls and sharp splinters in those seething ranks. Trollocs fell. Aaron saw them go down, trampled beneath boots and hooves. Even some Murgrel fell. Yet the tidal wave rushed on, closing holes and gaps, apparently undiminished. There was no need to order another volley. A second followed the first as quickly as men could knock arrows. A second rain of broadhead points, rising before the first dropped. The third following behind, the fourth, the fifth. Fire exploded among the Trollocs as fast as the catapult arms could be winched down. Baron galloping from catapult to catapult, down from her saddle. And the huge bellowing forms came on, crying in no language Baron understood, but crying for blood. Human blood and flesh. Men crouching behind the stakes readied themselves, hefting their weapons. Aaron felt cold inside. He could see the ground behind the Trolloc charge already littered with their dead and dying. Yet it hardly seemed they were fewer. Stepper pranced nervously, but he could not hear the Duns whicker for the rolling howls of the Trollocs. The axe came into his hand smoothly, long half-moon blade, catching the sunlight. Not midday yet. My heart is yours forever, Fael. This time, he did not think the stakes would. Not even slowing, the front rank of Trollocs ran onto the sharp stakes, faces contorted by snouts or beaks twisting with pained shrieks, howling as they were impaled, driven down by more huge shapes, scrambling up over their backs. Some of those falling among the stakes, replaced by more. One last volley of arrows drove home at point-blank range, and then it was the spears and halberds and homemade polearms, thrusting and stabbing at towering forms in black mail, sometimes falling while the bowmen shot as best they could at the inhuman faces above their friends' heads. Boys shooting down from the rooftops as well. Madness and death and ear-splitting roars and screams and howls. Slowly, inexorably, the Two Rivers line bulged inward at a dozen places. If it broke anywhere... "Fall back!" Aaron bellowed. A boar-snouted Trolloc, already bleeding, forced its way through the ranks of men, shrieking and striking with its thick, curved sword. Aaron's axe split its head to the snout. Stepper was trying to rear, screaming silently in the din. "Fall back!" Darl Coughlin went down, clutching a thigh transfixed by a wrist-thick spear. Tried to drag him backward, while awkwardly wielding a boar spear. Ari Coughlin swung his halberd in defense of his brother, mouth wide in a seemingly soundless shout. "Fall back between the houses!" He was not sure whether others heard and passed the order, or the mountainous weight of Trollocs simply pressed in. But slowly, one grudging step at a time, the humans moved back. Boyle swung his bloodied axes like mallets, wide mouths snarling. Beside the Ogier, Bran thrust his spear grimly. He had lost his steel cap, and blood ran in his fringe of gray hair. From his stallion, Tomas carved a space around Beren. Hair in wild disarray, she had lost her horse. Balls of fire streaked from her hands, and every Trolloc struck exploded in flames as if soaked in oil. River's men edged back, jostling around Stepper. Gaul and Chiad fought back to back. She had only one spear left, and he slashed and stabbed with his heavy knife. Back. To west and east, men had curved out from the defenses there to keep the Trollocs from flanking them, pouring arrows in. Not enough. Back. Suddenly a huge ram-horned shape was trying to pull Perrin out of the saddle, trying to climb up after him. Thrashing, Stepper went down under the combined weight. Leg pinned and pain near to breaking, Perrin struggled to bring his axe around, to fight hands bigger than an ogre's away from his throat. The Trolloc screamed as Aram's sword sliced into its neck. As it collapsed atop Perrin, spraying blood, the Tinker spun smoothly to run another Trolloc through the middle. Grunting with pain, Perrin kicked his way clear, aided by Stepper scrambling to his feet. But there was no time to think of remounting. He barely rolled aside, the black horse's hooves
Drop my glasses.
Pale,
Somewhere.
his face snarling, the Fade leaned from his saddle as he tried to rise, dead black sword slashing, brushing his hair as he dropped. Ruthlessly, he swung his axe, chopping one of the horse's legs out from under it. Horse and rider toppled together. As they fell, he buried his axe where the half-man's eyes should have been. He wrenched the blade free in time to see Daze Conger's pitchfork tines take a goat-snouted Trolloc in the throat. He seized the long shaft with one hand, stabbing a barbed spear at her with the other. But Marn Al'Vir calmly hamstrung it with one blow of her cleaver. The leg gave way, and she just as coolly severed the Trolloc's spine at the base of its neck. Another Trolloc lifted Bode Cawthon into the air by her braid. Mouth wide in a terrified scream, she sank her wood axe into its mailed shoulder, just as her sister Eldrin thrust her boar spear through its chest, and gray-braided Nisa Ellen drove a thick butchering knife in as well. All up and down the line, as Perrin could see, the women were there. Their numbers were the only reason the line still held, almost driven back against the houses. Women among the men, shoulder to shoulder, some no more than girls. But then some of those men had never shaved yet. Some never would. Where were the White Cloaks? The children! If the women were here, there was no one to get the children out. Where are the bloody White Cloaks? If they came now, at least they might buy another few minutes. A few minutes to get the children away. A boy, the same dark-haired runner who had come for him the night before, seized his arm as he turned to search for the companions. The companions had to try to cut a way out for the children. He would send them and do what he could here. Lord Perrin! The boy shouted at him through the deafening din. Lord Perrin! Perrin tried to shake him off, then snatched him up, kicking under one arm. He belonged with the other children. Split up in tight ranks, stretching from house to house, Ban and Tell and the other companions were shooting from their saddles over the heads of the men and women. Will had driven the banner's staff into the ground so he could work it too. Somehow Tell had managed to catch up Stepper. The Dun's reins were tied to Tell's saddle. The boy could go on Stepper's back. Lord Perrin, please listen! Master Althor says somebody's attacking the Trollocs! Lord Perrin! Perrin was halfway to Tell, hobbling on his bruised leg when it penetrated. He stuffed the axe haft through his belt to hoist the boy up in front of his face by the shoulders. Attacking them? Who? I don't know, Lord Perrin. Master Althor said to tell you he thought he heard somebody shouting, Devon Ride! Aram grabbed Perrin's arm, wordlessly pointing with his bloody sword. Perrin turned in time to see a hail of arrows plunge into the Trollocs. From the north, another flight was already rising toward the top of its arc. Go back to the other children, he said, setting the boy down. He had to be up where he could see. Go! You did well, boy! He added, as he ran awkwardly for Stepper. The little fellow scampered back into the village, grinning. Every step sent a jolt of pain up Perrin's leg. Maybe the thing was broken. He had no time to worry about that. Seizing the reins Tell tossed him, he hauled himself up into his saddle and wondered if he was seeing what he wanted to see instead of what was really there. Beneath a red eagle banner at the edge of where the fields had stood, long rows of men in farmers' clothes, shooting their bows methodically. And beside the banner, Fail sat Swallow's saddle, Bane at her stirrup. It had to be Bane behind that black veil, and he could see Fail's face clearly. She looked excited, fearful, terrified, and exuberant. She looked beautiful. Myrddraal was trying to turn some of the Trollocs around, trying to lead against the Watch Hill men, but it was useless. Even Trollocs who did turn went down before they covered 50 strides. A fade and its horse fell, not to arrows, but to panicked Trolloc hands and spears. It was the Trollocs moving back now, then running in a frenzy, fleeing shots from both sides, once the Emond's fieldmen had room to lift their bows too. Trollocs falling, Myrddraal going down. It was a slaughter, but Perrin hardly saw. Fail. The same boy appeared at his stirrup. "Lord Perrin!" he shouted, to be heard above cheering now. Men and women shouting for joy and relief as the last Trollocs who had not made it out of bow range fell. Not many had, Perrin believed, but he was barely able to think. Fail. The boy tugged at his breeches leg. "Lord Perrin, Master Althor said to tell you the Trollocs are breaking. And they are shouting Devon Ride. The men, I mean. I heard them." Perrin bent around. "What's your name, lad?" "J.M.A. Barra, Lord Perrin. I'm your cousin, I think. Sort of, anyway." Perrin squeezed his eyes shut for a moment to keep the tears in. Even when he opened them, his hand still trembled in the lad's head. "Well, Cousin J.M., you tell your children about today. You tell your grandchildren, your grandchildren's children." "I'm not going to have any," J.M. said stoutly. "Girls are horrible. They laugh at you and they don't like to do anything worth doing. And you never understand what they're saying." "I think one day you'll find out they're the opposite of horrible. Some of it won't change, but that will." Fail. J.M. looked doubtful, but then he brightened, a wide grin spreading across his face. "Wait till I tell Had. Lord Perrin called me cousin." And he darted away to tell Had, who would have children too. The sun stood straight overhead. An hour, maybe. It had all taken no more than an hour. It felt like a lifetime.
It doesn't get hot that
Stepper moved
quick,
forward
or
and
it's for
realized
very
Althor
long.
dug his heels in. Cheering people made way for the dun, and he hardly heard them. There were great gaps where Trollocs had broken down the stakes with sheer weight of numbers. He rode through one over a mound of dead Trollocs and never noticed. Dead Trollocs carpeted the open
Try this
ground,
again.
and here and there a pincushioned fade flailed and thrashed. He saw none of it. He had eyes for only one thing. Fail. She started after the Watch Hill men, pausing to stop Bane from following, and rode to meet him. She rode so gracefully, as if the black mare were part of her, slimly erect, guiding Swallow more with her knees than the reins, as they cast her in one hand.
Then that
The red
porch,
marriage ribbon
torch is
still
about done
twined
with.
through her hair, the ends dangling past her shoulders. He must find her flowers. For a moment, those tilted eyes studied him. Her mouth. She could not be certain of what she holding her head high. Sideways, neck arched, and Fail mastered. I did not say
That was definitely a good one there.
You cannot say I did. He could not say anything. She was so beautiful. He just wanted to look at her. Beautiful, alive, with him. Her scent was clean sweat with just the slightest hint of herbal soap. He was not sure whether he wanted to laugh or cry. Maybe both. He wanted to pull all the smell of her into his lungs. Frowning, she went on. "They were ready, Perrin. Truly they were. I
Hey,
barely had to say anything
Sasquatch, how you
once they'd
doing?
come. The Trollocs had hardly bothered them at all, but they could see the smoke. We traveled hard and reached Watch Hill well before first light. And we started back as soon as the sun rose. Her frown became a wide smile, eager and proud.
I was just doing a couple of dabs,
Dark
but
eyes sparkled.
I think my little
They followed me.
torch is
They followed me.
going
Queen
out.
Tenobia has never
Hold on
led
a
men in
sec.
battle.
Leave that
She
open, let
wanted
that
to
cool
once
down.
when I was 8.
That's a
But
little
Father had
warm.
a talk with her alone in her chambers. And when he
But
rode off
I already
to the
got a
night, she
bowl
stood
loaded
behind
too,
me.
so.
With a rueful grin, she added, I think you and he use the same method sometimes. Tenobia exiled him, but she was only 16, and the Council of Lords managed to change her mind after a few weeks. She will be blue with envy when I tell her. Again she paused, this time drawing a deep breath and planting a fist on her hip. Aren't you going to say anything? She demanded impatiently. Are you just going to sit there like a hairy lump? I did not say I would leave the two rivers. You said that, not I. You've no right to be angry because I did not do what I never promised. And you trying to send me away because you thought you were going to die. I came back to... I love you. It was all he could say, but strangely it seemed to be enough. No sooner were the words out of his mouth than she reined Swallow close enough to throw an arm around him and press her face against his chest. She seemed to be trying to squeeze him in two. Her dark hair gently, just feeling the silkiness of it. Just feeling her. I was so afraid I would be too late, she said into his coat. The Watch Hill men marched as fast as they could, but when we arrived and I saw the Trollocs fighting right in among the houses, so many of them, as if the village were being buried in an avalanche, and I couldn't see you. She drew a shivering breath and let it out slowly. When she spoke again, her voice was calmer. Just. Did the men from Devon Ride come? He gave a start, and his hand stopped stroking. Yes, they did. How did you know? Did you arrange that too? She began shaking. It took him a moment to know she was laughing. No, my heart. Though I would have if I could. When that man came with his message, we are coming, I hoped that was what it meant. Pulling her face back a little, she looked up at him seriously. I could not tell you, Perrin. I could not raise your hopes when I only suspected. It would have been too cruel if... Don't be angry with me, Perrin. Laughing, he lifted her out of her saddle and set her sideways in front of his. She laughed her protests and stretched
I would imagine.
with both arms around him. I will never, ever.
At least it's
you. I swear.
a little something to smoke, though.
Mother says the worst thing Father ever did to her was vow never to be angry with her. It took her a year to force him to take it back. And she says he was hardly fit to live with long before then from holding in. You will.
1 second.
Perrin, and I with you. If you want to make me another wedding vow you will not hide it when you are. I cannot deal with what you will not let me see, my husband. My husband, she repeated in a satisfied tone, snuggling against him. I do like the sound of that. He noticed she did not say she would always let him know when she was angry. On past experience, he would have to discover it the hard way at least half the time. And she made no promises not to keep secrets from him again either. Right then, it did not matter so long as she was with him. I will let you know when I'm angry, my wife, he promised. She gave him a slanted look, as if she was not sure how to take that. You won't ever come to understand them, Cousin Jacob. But you won't care. Abruptly, he became aware of the dead Trollocs all around him. Like a black field full of feathered weeds, the thrashing murderers still refusing to die finally. Slowly he turned stepward. A slaughter yard and a shambles of shadow spawn, stretching for hundreds of paces in every direction. Crows hopped across the ground already, and vultures soared overhead in a huge milling cloud. No ravens, though. And the same to the south, according to James. He could see the vultures wheeling beyond the village for proof. Not enough to repay for Dessel, or Adora, or little Pate, or... Not enough. It would never be enough. Nothing could ever repay for them. He hugged Fail, hard enough to make her grunt. But when he tried to ease up, she put her hands on his arms, gripping just as hard to keep them where they were. She was enough. People were streaming out of Emmons Field, Bran limping and using a spear for a staff, Lauren smiling with an arm around him, Daze being hugged by her husband Wit, and Gall and Chia hand in hand with their veils. Loyal's drooped wearily, and Tam had blood on his face. Flann Lewin was standing only with the help of his wife, Adina. There was blood on nearly everyone, and hasty bandages. But they came out in a widening throng. Ilum and Dav, and Ewen and Aram. Edward Candwin and Bull Doubtry. Hugh and Tad the stableman from the Wine Spring Inn. Ban and Tell and the companions riding with that banner still. This time, he did not see the missing faces, only those who were still there. Baron and Alana on their horses, with Tomas and Ivan riding close behind. Old Billy Conger waving a jug that surely held ale, or better yet, brandy. And Sen Bowie, as gnarled as ever, if bruised. And Jack Alcine, with an arm around his wife, and his sons and daughters around him, with their wives and husbands. Rain and Isla, still with the babes on their backs. More. Faces he did not know at all. Men who must be from Devon Ride and the farms down there. Boys and girls running among them, laughing. They fanned out to either side, forming a great hollow circle with the Watch Hill men. Fail and him at its center. Everyone avoided the dying fades, but it was as if they did not see the shadow spawn lying everywhere. Only the pair on Stepper. Silently they watched until Perrin began to feel nervous. Why doesn't somebody say something? Why are they staring like that? The White Cloaks appeared, riding slowly out of the village in their long, gleaming column of fours. Dane Bornhald at their head with Jarred Byer. Every white cloak shone as though freshly laundered. Every lance slanted at precisely the same angle. Sullen mutters rose, but people moved aside to let them enter the circle. Bornhald raised a gauntlet in hand, halting the column in a jingle of bridles and creak of saddles when he faced Perrin. It is done, Shadow Spawn. Byer's mouth quivered on the brink of a snarl, but Bornhald's face never changed. His voice never rose. The Trollocs are done here. As we agreed, I arrest you now for dark friend and murderer. No! Fail twisted around to stare up at Perrin, eyes angry. What does he mean? As you agreed? Her words were nearly drowned by the roar from every side. No, no! And you will not take him, and Golden Eyes.
No shit.
Keeping his gaze on Bornhald,
That's crazy, Sasquatch.
And silence descended slowly. When all was quiet, he said, I said I would not resist if you aided. Surprising how calm his voice was. Inside, he seethed with a slow, cold anger. If you aided, White Cloak, where were you?
That'd be the way, place to have a stealth grow.
Daze Conger stepped out from the encircling throng with Wit. He clung to her arm as if he never wanted to let go of her again. For that matter, her stout arm was wrapped around Wit's shoulders in much the same fashion. They made an odd picture as she planted her pitchfork polearm firmly, her the taller by a head, and holding a considerably smaller husband as though she meant to protect him. They were on the green, she announced loudly, all lined up and sitting their horses pretty as girls ready for a dance at Sunday. They never stirred. It was that made us come. A fierce murmur of agreement rippled from the women. When we saw you were about
Oh
to
shit,
go
that's
along,
crazy, Sasquatch.
and they just sat there like bumps on a log. Bornhald did not take
Damn,
his eyes
that's
from
pretty
Perrin.
crazy.
He did not even blink. Did you think I would trust you? He sneered. Your plan only failed because these others arrived, yes? And you can claim no part in that. Fail shifted. Without looking away from the man, Perrin laid a finger across her
Yeah,
lips,
that is some
just as
bad
she
luck.
opened her mouth. She bit him hard, but but she did not say anything. Bornhold's voice finally began to rise. I will see you hanged, Shadowspawn. I will see you hanged whatever it takes. I will see you dead if the world burns. The last came as a shout. Bayar's sword slid a hand of bare steel from its scabbard. A massive white cloak behind him, Floran, Perrin thought his name was, drew his completely with a pleased smile rather than Bayar's toothy snarl. They froze as quivers rattled to arrows being drawn, and bows came up all around the circle, fletchings drawn to ear. Every broadhead shaft pointed at a white cloak. Up and down the thick column, high-cantled saddles creaked as men shifted uneasily. Bornhold showed no sign of fear, and he did not smell of it either. His scent was all hate. He ran almost fevered eyes over the two rivers folk encircling his men, and returned them to Perrin just as hot and hateful. Perrin motioned downward, and tension was let off bowstrings reluctantly. Bows lowered slowly.
All right.
You would not help. His voice was cold iron and bull-hard. Since you came to the Two Rivers, the help you've given has been almost accidental. You never really cared if people were burned out, killed, so long as you could find somebody to call Dark Friend. Bornhold shivered, though his eyes still burned. It is time for you to go. Not just from Emmons Field.
Oh shit, that definitely sounds tasty though.
Your white cloaks and leave the Two Rivers. Now, Bornhold. You are going now. I will see you hang one day, Bornhold said softly. He jerked his hand for the column to follow and booted his horse forward as if he meant to ride Perrin over. Perrin moved Stepper aside. He wanted these men gone, not more killing. Let the man have a final gesture of defiance. Bornhold never turned his head, but hollow-cheeked Bayar stared silent hate at Perrin. Faran seemed to look at him with regret for some reason. The others kept their eyes front as they heard the jingle of tack and clop of hooves.
Maybe it is a little aged. It still do its
A
job.
knot of 10 or 12 men approached Perrin on foot, some in mismatched bits and pieces of old armor, all grinning anxiously as the last of the white cloaks went by. He did not recognize any of them. A wide-nosed, leathery-faced fellow seemed to be their leader, his white hair bare, but a rusty mail shirt covering him to the knees, though the collar of a farmer's coat poked up around his neck. He bowed awkwardly over his bow. Jared Barbastir, my lord, Perrin. Jared, they call me. He spoke hurriedly, as if afraid of being interrupted. Pardon for bothering you. Some of us will see the white cloaks along, if that's all right with you. A good many want to get on home, even if we can't get there before dark. There's as many white cloaks again in Watch Hill, but they would not come. Had orders to hold fast, they said. Bunch of fools, if you ask me. And we're more than tired of having them around, poking their noses into people's houses and trying to make you accuse your neighbor of something. We'll see them off, if that's all right with you. He gave Fail an abashed look, tucking his broad chin, but the flow of words did not slow. Pardon, my lady Fail. Didn't mean to bother you and your lord. Just wanted to let him know we're with him. A fine woman you have there, my lord. Fine woman. No offense meant, my lady. Well, we daylight still and talk shears, no sheep. Pardon for bothering you, my lord Perrin. Pardon, my lady Fail. He bowed again, imitated by the others, and they hurried away with him herding them, muttering at them. No time for us to be bothering the lord and his lady. There's work to do yet. Who was that? Perrin said, a trifle stunned by the torrent. Days and sent together could not talk that much. Do you know him, Fail? From Watch Hill.
Oh shit, that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Watch Hill, and the others the village council. The Watch Hill Women's Circle will be sending a delegation down under their wisdom once they're certain it is safe. To see if this Lord Perrin is right for the Two Rivers, they say. But they all wanted me to show them how to curtsy to you. And the wisdom, Adele Galen, is bringing you some of her dried apple tarts. Oh, burn me, he breathed. It was spreading. He knew he should have stamped it down hard in the beginning. Don't call me that, he shouted after the departing man. I'm a blacksmith. Do you hear me? A blacksmith. Jer Barsteer turned to wave at him and nod before hurrying the others on. Chortling, Fail tugged at his beard.
Oh, that's crazy.
You are a sweet fool, my lord blacksmith. It is too late to turn back now. Suddenly her smile became truly wicked. Husband, is there any possibility you might be alone with your wife anytime soon? Marriage seems to have made me as bold as a mind goes. I know you must be tired, but... She cut off with a small shriek and clung to his coat as he booted Stifford to a gallop toward the Wine Spring Inn. For once, the cheers that followed did not bother him at all. Golden Eyes! Lord Perrin! Golden Eyes! From the thick branch of a leafy oak, Ordeef stared at Emmons Field a mile to the south. It was impossible. Scourge them. Play them. Everything had been going according to plan. Even Isom had played into his hands. Why did the fool stop bringing Trollocs? He should have brought in enough to turn the Two Rivers black with them. Spittle dripped from his lips, but he did not notice, any more than he realized that his hand was fumbling at his belt. Harry them till their hearts burst. Harrow them into the ground screaming. All planned to pull Randolph Thor to him. And it came to this. The Two Rivers had not even been scratched. A few farms burned did not count. There were a few farmers butchered alive for common pots. Burns of a fire for 1,000 years. He studied the village and the one not that far below him. A scarlet wolf head on scarlet bordered white and a red eagle. Red for the blood the Two Rivers must shed to make
He goes to turn the frozen stuff into bubble hash too. Just get hold of some bubble bags and my brother, most hated grower, he makes some pretty good bubble hash.
He laughed so hard he nearly fell on
We got a bubble
that
hash bag set.
That one gripped his belt where a dagger. The laugh twisted into a snarl as he stared at that.
We got all the bags for it, but he only uses like I think 2 or 3 of the different bags from it.
He let himself drop to the ground and scrambled onto his horse before looking at his companions. His hounds.
Oh, that's crazy.
White cloaks remaining no longer wore their white cloaks. Rust spotted their dull-plated mail. Bornhold would never have recognized those sullen, suspicious faces, dirty and unshaven. The humans watched Ordeef, distrustful, yet afraid. Not even glancing at the Myrddraal in their midst, its slug-pale face as bleakly wooden as theirs.
I know we had the bags and my brother mixes it with, we don't have a washer for it, but he pretty much uses a drill and like the paint mixing part. Like, yeah, and so it agitates it like a washer, but he does it pretty much by hand with the drill. He'll sit there for a minute with it. But he always has a good yield a good yield rate.
But Camelin first. Scourge them and flay them.
Oh shit, that's crazy.
First, and then Randolph Thor, and then
I have to see if I can't talk most hate into doing a video of how he does it. That way you can try it that way, see that helps or not.
Chapter 57. A break-in in the Threefold Land.
Oh shit. I don't think that's the only method that
Just ahead now.
we haven't tried is a dry ice method yet, because we have good results with the way we do ours.
Miles rolling away behind. The mountains had held
Oh, you can?
since they first came in sight the day before. Not snow-capped, not not so tall as the mountains of mist, much less the spine of the world, but jagged slabs of brown and gray stone, streaked in some places with yellow or red, or bands of glittering flecks. Tumbled about so that a man might think to try the dragon wall afoot first. Sighing, he settled in his saddle and adjusted the shufa he wore with his red coat. In those mountains lay Alcair Dal. Soon there would be an ending of sorts, or a beginning. Maybe both. Soon, perhaps.
1 second, everyone. I'll be right back.
Rode easily ahead of the dapple stallion, and 9 more sun-dark, far-their-eyes made a wide ring around him, all with bucklers and spears in hand, cased bows on their backs, black veils dangling on their chests, ready to be lifted. Rand's honor guard. The Aiel did not call it that, yet the maidens came to Alcair Dal for Rand's honor. So many differences, and he did not know what half really were, even when he saw them. For instance, Avienda's behavior toward the maidens, and theirs to her. Most of the time, as now, she walked beside his horse with her arms folded in the shawl around her shoulders, green eyes intent beneath her dark headscarf on the mountains ahead. She seldom spoke with the maidens, beyond a word or two. But that was not the oddity. Her arms folded, that was the heart of it. The maidens knew she wore the ivory bracelet, yet seemed to pretend not to see it. She would not take it off, yet hid her wrist whenever she thought one of them might be looking. You have no society, Adolin had told him when he suggested some other than the maidens of the spear might provide his escort. Each chief, whether of clan or sept, would be accompanied by men from the society he had belonged to before becoming chief. You have no society, but your mother was a maiden. The yellow-haired woman and the other 9 had not looked at Avienda a few steps away in the entry hall, Leon's roof. They had not looked intently. For countless years, maidens who would not give up the spear have given their babes for the wise ones to hand to other women, none knowing where the child went, or even whether boy or girl. Now a maiden's son has come back to us, and we know him. We will go to Alcair Dal for your honor, son of Shayi, a maiden of the Jumai Tardat. Her face was so set, all of their faces were, including Avienda's, that he thought they might offer to dance the spears if he refused. When he accepted, they made him go through that ritual of remember honor again, this time with some drink called usquai, made from zamai, drinking to the bottom of a small silver cup with each of them. 10 maidens, 10 little cups. The stuff looked like faintly brown-tinged water, tasted almost like it, and was stronger than double distilled brandy. He had not been able to walk straight after, and they had got him to bed, laughing at him, no matter how he protested, as much as he could with all of them tickling him, so he could barely breathe for laughing himself. All but Avienda. Not that she went away. She stayed and watched the whole thing with a face as blank as stone. When Adolin and the others finally tucked her into blankets and left, Avienda sat down beside the door, spreading her dark, heavy skirts, watching him stonily until he fell asleep. And waking, he was still there, still watching, and refusing to talk about maidens or usquai or any of it. As far as she was concerned, it seemed not to have happened. Whether the maidens would have been as reticent, he did not know. How could you possibly look 10 women in the face and ask why they had gotten you?
Hell yeah.
Made a game of taking your clothes off and putting you to bed.
I think there's a place
so few that
somewhat close to us to where we could send our stuff in to get tested. I'm not sure how the pricing is on it.
What was done was done. And who can say what's yet to come? Well behind, the Tardat followed him. Not just the 9 Valley Tardat and the Dimble.
I've always been
and the 4 stones,
curious about
and the bloody water.
how strong some of the stuff that we grow is.
Surrounding the peddlers' lurching wagons and the wise ones party, reaching back 2 miles through the shimmering heat haze. ringed by scouts and outrunners. Every day more had come in response to the runners Ruark had sent that first day. 100 men and maidens here, 300 there, 500, according to the size of each sept and what each hose needed to keep for safety. In the distance, to the south and west, another band was approaching at a run, trailing dust for their pace. Perhaps they belonged to some other clan on its way to Alcair Dal.
Not bad.
But he thought not. Only 2/3 of the septs were represented yet, but he estimated there were well over 15,000 Tardad Aiel strung out behind him. An army on the march and still growing. Nearly an entire clan coming to a meeting of chiefs in violation of all custom.
No shit.
Suddenly Jotun topped her eyes. There, in a long wide hollow below, was the fair gathered for the meeting. And on the hills beyond, the camps of the clan and sept chiefs, who had already arrived. Spread among 200 or 300 of the low wall-less tents, all widely spaced, were pavilions of the same grayish-brown material that were tall enough to stand beneath, with goods displayed on blankets in the shade, brightly glazed pottery and even brighter rugs, jewelry in silver or gold. Aiel crafts mainly, but there would be things from beyond the waste as well, including perhaps silk and ivory from far to the east. No one seemed to be trading. The few men and women in sight sat in one or another of the pavilions, usually alone. Of the 5 camps scattered on heights around the fair, 4 looked just as empty, only a few dozen men or maidens stirring amid tents set up for as many as 1,000. The 5th camp sprawled over twice as
I'm
much
not sure.
ground
That's
as the others.
something my
Hundreds of people visible,
brother would
likely
know.
as many more inside
He's
the
one that
tents.
does all, at least the bubble hash
Ruark
part
trotted
of
up the
it.
hill behind Rand with his 10 door, red shields, followed by Iron with 10 Tyne Shari, True Bloods, and 40-odd more sept chiefs with their escorts for honor, all with spears and bucklers, bows and quivers. It made a formidable force, more than had taken the Stone of Tyr. Some of the Aiel in the camps and among the pavilions were peering at the hilltop. Not at the Aiel gathered there, Rand suspected. At him. A man on a horse. A thing seen very seldom in the Threefold Land. He would show them more before he was done. Ruark's gaze settled on the largest camp, where more Aiel in Kadin Sor were boiling out of the tents, all to stare in their direction. Shaido, unless I mistake myself, he said quietly. You are not the only one to break custom, Rand al'Thor. Perhaps as well I did. Rand dragged the shufa from around his head and stuffed it into his coat pocket atop the Angreal, the carving of a round-faced man with a sword across his knees. The sun began baking his bare head to show him how much protection the cloth had been. If we had come according to custom, the Shaido were loping toward the mountains, leaving behind apparently empty tents, and causing some little stir in the other camps and the fair. The Aiel gave over staring at a man on a horse to peer after the Shaido. Could you have forced a way into Alcair Dal against 2-to-1 odds or better, Lord? Not before nightfall, the clan chief replied slowly. Not even against Shaido dog robbers. This is more than violation of custom. Even Shaido should have more honor than this. Angry mutters of agreement rose from the other Tardad on the hilltop. Except the maidens. For some reason, they had gathered around Avienda off to one side, talking seriously among themselves. Ruark spoke a few quiet words to one of his red shields, a green-eyed fellow who looked as if his face had been used to pound fence posts, and the man turned downhill, running swiftly back toward the approaching Tardad. Did you expect this? Ruark asked Rand, as soon as the red shield left. Is that why you summoned the entire clan? Not this exactly, Ruark. The Shaido began forming lines before a narrow gap into the mountains. They were veiling themselves. But there was no other reason for Couladin to leave in the night, except that he was eager to be somewhere. And where would he better like to be than here, causing me trouble? Are the others already in Alcair Dal? Why? The opportunity presented by Chief's meeting is not to be missed, Rand al'Thor. There will be discussions of boundary disputes, grazing rights, a dozen things. Water. If two Aiel from different clans meet, they discuss water. 3 from 3 clans, and they discuss water and grazing. And 4, and asked. 5 clans represented already, and the Tardad made 6. Ruark hesitated a moment, hefting one of his short spears unconsciously. War will dance the spears, but it should not be so here. The Tardad parted to let the wise ones through, shawls over their heads, with Moraine and Land and Egwene riding behind. Egwene and the Aes Sedai wore loose white cloths around their temples, in damp imitation of the Aiel women's headscarves. Mat rode up too, off by himself, black-hafted spear across his pommel. His wide-brimmed hat shadowed his face as he studied what lay ahead. The warder nodded to himself when he saw the shadow. "That could be messy," he said softly. His black stallion rolled an eye at Rand's dapple. Only that. Rand was intent on the Aiel ranks before the gap. Yet he patted Mondarv's neck soothingly. "But not now, I think." "Not now," Ruark agreed. "If only you would allow me to go in with you." Except for that one slight hitch, Moraine's voice was as serene as ever. Cool calm painted her ageless features, but her dark eyes looked at Rand as if her gaze alone could force him to relent. Amisa's long pale hair, hanging below her shawl, swung as she shook her head firmly. "It is not his decision, Aes Sedai. This is the business of chiefs, men's business. If we let you go into Alcair-Dal now, the next time wise ones meet, or roof mistresses, some clan chief will want to put his nose in. They think we meddle in their affairs, and often try to meddle in ours." She gave Ruark a quick smile meant to convey that she did not include him. Her husband's lack of expression told Rand he thought otherwise. Belain gripped her shawl under her chin, precisely staring at Rand. If she did not agree with Moraine, at least she mistrusted what he would do. He had hardly slept since leaving Cold Rocks. If they had peered into his dreams, they had seen only nightmares. "Be careful, Rand al'Thor," Bear said, as if she had read his thoughts. "A tired man makes mistakes. You cannot afford mistakes today." She pulled her shawl down around her thin shoulders, and her thin voice took on an almost angry note. "We cannot afford for you to make mistakes. The Aiel cannot afford it." The coming of more riders to the hilltop had drawn eyes back to them. Among the pavilions, several hundred Aiel, men in Codensor, and long-haired women in skirts and blouses and shawls, made a watchful crowd. Its attention shifted when Kadir's dusty white wagon appeared behind its team of mules off to the right, with the heavy cream-coated peddler on the driver's seat and Descendra all in white silk holding a matching parasol. Kylie's wagon followed, with Mateo handling the reins at her side, and the canvas-topped wagons, and finally the 3 big water wagons, like huge barrels on wheels with their long mule teams. They looked at Rand as the wagon rumbled past in a squeal of ungreased axles. Kadir and Descendra, Mateo in his gleeman's patch-covered cloak, Kylie's great bulk encased in snowy white, a white lace shawl on her ivory combs. Rand patted Jadin's arched neck. Men and women began spilling out of the fair below to meet the approaching wagons. The Shaido were waiting. Soon now. Egwene moved her gray close to Jadin. The dapple stallion tried to nuzzle Mist, got nipped for his trouble. "You've not given me any chance to speak to you since Cold Rocks, Rand." He said nothing. She was Aes Sedai now, not just because she called herself one. He wondered if she had spied on his dreams too. Her face looked tight, her dark eyes tired. "Do not keep to yourself, Rand. You do not fight alone. Others do battle for you too." Frowning, he tried not to look at her. His first thought was of Emond's Field and Perrin, but he did not see how she could know where Perrin had gone. What do you mean? He said. I fight for you, Moraine said before Egwene could open her mouth. As does Egwene. A look flashed between the two women. People fight for you who do not know it any more than you know them. You do not realize what it means that you force the form of the age lace, do you? The ripples of your action, the ripples of your very existence, spread across the pattern to change the weave of life threads of which you will never be aware. The battle is far from yours alone. Yet you stand in the heart of this web in the pattern. Should you fail and fall, let Lan accompany you. One pair of eyes to watch your back. The warder turned slightly in his saddle, frowning at her. The Shido veiled for killing, he would not be eager to leave her alone. Bran did not think he was supposed to have seen that look pass from Moraine to Egwene. So they had a secret to keep from him. Egwene did have Aes Sedai eyes, dark and unreadable. Aviendha, let Lan stay with you, Moraine. Father Eyes Mai carries my honor. Moraine's mouth tightened at the corners, but apparently that was exactly the right thing to say so far as the maidens were concerned. Adeline and the others donned wide grins. Below, Aiel were crowding around wagon drivers as they began unhitching the mules. Not everyone was paying attention to the Aiel. They stared at one another from beside their wagons, Natail speaking urgently to one group, Kadir to the other, until they finally stopped their pool of eyes. The two women had been like that for some time. Had they been men, Rand would have expected it to come to blows long since. Be on your guard, Egwene, Rand said. All of you, be on your guard. Even the Shido will not bother Aes Sedai, Amis told me, any more than they will bother Bear, or Melaine, or myself. Some things are beyond even Shido. Just be on your guard. He had not meant to be that sharp. Even Ruark stared at him. They did not understand that he dared not tell them. Spring the trap first. He had to risk them as well as himself. What about me, Rand? Said suddenly, rolling a gold coin across the fingers of one hand as though unaware of it. Do you have any objections to my going with you? Do you want to? I thought you'd stay with the peddlers. Matt frowned at the wagons below, looked to the Shido lined before the mountain gap. I don't think it will be so easy to get out of here if you get yourself killed. Burn me if you don't stick me in the rendering kennel one way or... Dovinia, he muttered. Rand had heard him say that before. Lan said it meant luck in the old times. He flipped the gold coin into the air. When he tried to snatch it back, it bounced off his fingertips and fell to the ground. Somehow, improbably, the coin landed on edge, rolling downhill, bounding across cracks in the baked clay, glittering in the sunlight all the way down to the wagons, where it finally fell over. Burn me, Rand, he growled. I wish you wouldn't do that. Cassandra picked up the coin and stood fingering it, peering up at the hilltop. The others stared too, Kadir and Kylie and Natail. Come, Rand said. Ruark. Isn't it about time? The clan chief glanced over his shoulder. Yes, just about. Below him, pipes began playing a slow dancing tune. Now. Singing rose to the pipes. Aiel boys stopped singing when they reached manhood, except for certain occasions. Only in battle songs and laments for the dead did an Aielman sing, once he had taken up the speech. There were surely maidens' voices in that chanted harmony of parts, but deep male voices swallowed them. Wash the spears while the sun climbs high. Wash the spears while the sun falls low. Half a mile to right and left, Tardot appeared, running in time to their song in two wide columns, spears ready, faces veiled. Seemingly endless columns rolling toward the mountains. Wash the spears. Who fears to die? Wash the spears. No one I know. In the clan camps and in the fair, Aiel stared in amazement. Something in the way they held themselves told Rand they were silent. Some of the wagon drivers stood as if stunned. Others let the mules run loose and dove under their wagons. And Kylie and Ascendra, Kadir and the tail, watched Rand. Wash the spears while life holds true. Wash the spears until life ends. Wash the spears. Shall we go? He did not wait for Ruark's nod to heel Jotun to a walk down the hill, Adeline and the other maidens falling in around him. Matt hesitated a moment before booting Pips to follow, but Ruark and the Tardad sub-chiefs, each with his 10, stepped off with the Dapple. Once, halfway to the fair tents, Rand looked back to the hilltop. Moraine and Egwene sitting their horses with Lang. Avienda standing with the three wise ones, all watching him. He had almost forgotten what it was like not to have people watching him. As he rode abreast to the fair, a delegation came out, 10 or a dozen women in skirts and blouses, and much gold and silver and ivory, as many men in the grays and browns of the Cottonzor, but unarmed save for a belt knife, and that usually smaller than the heavy-bladed weapon Ruark wore. Still, they took a position that forced Rand and the others to halt, appeared to ignore the veiled Tardad streaming by to east and west. Wash the spears. Life is a dream. Wash the spears. All dreams must end. I did not expect this of you, Ruark, the heavy-set, gray-haired man said. He was not fat. Rand had not seen a fat Aiel. His heaviness was muscle. Even from the Shaido, it was a surprise. But you... Times change, Anduin, the clan chief replied. How long have the Shaido been here? They arrived just at sunrise. Why they traveled in the night, who can say? Anduin frowned slightly at Rand, tilted his head toward Matt. Strange times indeed, Ruark. Who is here besides the Shaido? Ruark asked. We Goshin arrived first, then the Sharad. The heavy man grimaced over his blood enemy's name, without stopping his study of the two wetlanders. The Charin and the Tomanel came later. And last, the Shaido, as I said. Savannah convinced the chiefs to go in only a short time ago. Bale saw no reason to meet today, nor did some of the others. A broad-faced woman in her middle years, with hair yellower than Adeline's, put fists on her hips and a rattle of ivory and gold bracelets. She wore as many, and as many necklaces, as Amis and her sister-wife combined. We hear he who comes with the dawn has come out of Radion, Ruark. She was frowning at Rand and Matt. The entire delegation was. We hear that the Ka Karn will be announced today, before all of the clans arrive. Then someone spoke you a prophecy, Rand said. He touched the Dapple's flanks with his heels. The delegation moved out of his way. Dovina, Matt muttered. Me Dovina na sudden surrender. Whatever it meant, it sounded a fervent wish. The Tardad columns had come up on either side of the shop and turned to face them across 100 paces, still veiled, still singing. They made no move that could be considered threatening, really. Only stood there, 15 or 20 times the Shaido numbers, and sang, voices thundering in chanting harmony. Wash the spears till shade is gone. Wash the spears till water turns dry. Wash the spears, how long from home? Wash the spears until I die. Riding closer to the black-veiled Shaido, Rand saw Ruark lift a hand to his own veil. No, Ruark. We are not here to fight them. He meant that he hoped it would not come to that, but the Aielmen took it differently. You are right, Rand al'Thor. No honor to the Shaido. Leaving his veil hanging, Ruark raised his voice. No honor to the Shaido! Rand did not turn his head to look, but he had the feeling black veils were being lowered behind him. "Oh, blood and ashes," Matt muttered. "Blood and bloody ashes." Wash the spears till the sun grows cold. Wash the spears till water runs free. Wash the spears. The lines of Shido shifted uneasily. Whether Couladin or Savannah had told them, they could count. To dance the spears with Ruark and those with him was one thing, even if it went against all custom. To face enough Tardad to sweep them away like an avalanche was something else. Slowly they parted, moving back to let Rand ride through, stepping back to make a wide path. Rand heaved a sigh of relief. Adeline and the other maidens, at least, walked looking straight ahead, as though the Shido did not exist. Wash the spears while I breathe. Wash the spears, my steel is bright. Wash the spears. The chant faded to a murmur behind them as they passed into the wide...
Hey, ready to hit hot fire. How you doing?
Deep and shadowed as it wound into the
Hope you're
mountains.
doing well tonight.
For minutes, the loudest sounds were the clatter of hooves on stone.
Definitely glad you stopped by.
Boots. Abruptly, the passage gave way to Al-Kardal. Rand could see what the canyon had been called a bowl, though there was nothing golden about it. Almost perfectly round,
But cheers to you too. Ready to hit hot fire.
At the far end, where it curled inward like a breaking wave. Clusters of Aiel dotted the slopes, heads and faces bare, many more clusters than there were clans. The Tardad, who had come with the Sept chiefs,
Hell yeah,
toward one or
ready to
another
hit hot
of these.
fire.
According to Ruark, grouping by society rather than clan was an aid to keeping peace. Only his red shields and the maidens continued on with Rand and the Tardad chiefs. The Sept chiefs of the other clans all sat by clan, cross-legged before a deep ledge beneath the curling overhang. 6 small knots, one of maidens, stood between the Sept chiefs and the ledge. Supposedly, these were the Aiel who had come for the honor of clan chiefs. 6, although only 5 clans were represented. Savannah would have the maidens, though Avienda had been quick to point out that Savannah had never been Fardarai's Mai. But the extra... 11 men in that, not 10. Even seeing Olympic of a flame-haired head, Rand was sure it was Couladin. On the ledge itself stood a golden-haired woman in as much jewelry as the woman back at the fair tents.
Yeah, shit, hell yeah.
Over her arms. Savannah, of course. And 4 clan chiefs, none armed save for his long belt knife, and one, the tallest man, Rand had ever seen. Bale.
Hitting some
By the description,
sunset sherbet.
Savannah was speaking, and some trick of the canyon's shape carried her words clearly throughout. Allow him to speak. Her voice was tight and angry. High head and back straight, she tried to dominate the ledge by force of will. I demand it as my right. Until a new chief is chosen, I stand and the Shido. I demand my right. You stand for Suladric until a new chief is chosen, Roof Mistress. The white-haired man who spoke in irascible tones was Han, clan chief of the Common. With a face like dark wrinkled leather, you would have
Little stash spray smoking your preloaded cart.
For an Aiel, he was short, if stocky. I have no doubt you know the rights of a Roof Mistress well, but perhaps not so well those of a clan chief. Only one who has entered Roidian may speak here, and you who stand in Saladric's place. I don't know about that, but then he sounded like his fellow. But the Dreamwalkers have told our wise ones Couladin was refused the right to enter Roidian. Couladin shouted something, plainly furious, yet indistinct. Apparently, the canyon's trick only worked from the ledge. But Aram, Charine, his own bright red hair nearly half white, cut him off sharply. Have you no respect for custom and law, Shido? Have you no honor? Stand silent here. A few eyes on the slopes turned to see who the newcomers were. A ripple of nudges brought more around at the sight of 2 outlanders on horseback at the head of the Sept chiefs, and one of the riders followed close by maidens. How many Aiel peered down at him, man wondered? 3,000? 4? More?
Oh shit, Ray hit fire. Ray hit hot fire.
We have gathered here to hear a great announcement, Bale said.
Nice.
When all the clans have come. His dark reddish hair was graying too. There were no young men among clan chiefs. His great height and deep voice drew eyes to him. When all the clans have come. If all Savannah wishes to speak of now is letting Couladin speak, I will go back to my tents and wait. Jiran of the Sharad, blood enemy of Bale's Goshin, was a slender man, gray streaked heavily through his light brown hair. Slender as a steel blade is slender, he spoke to no one of the chiefs in particular. I say we do not return to our tents. Since Savannah has brought us in, let us discuss what is only somewhat less important than the announcement we await. Water. I wish to discuss the water at Chain Ridge Stand. Bale turned toward him threateningly. Fools! Savannah snapped. I will have done with waiting. It was then that those on the ledge became aware of the new arrivals. In utter silence, they watched them approach, the clan chiefs frowning, Savannah scowling. She was a pretty woman, well short of her middle years, and younger looking for standing among men well the other side of theirs, but with a greedy mouth. The clan chiefs were dignified, even Han in a sour-mouthed fashion. Her pale green eyes had a calculating look. Unlike any Aiel woman Rand had ever seen, she wore her loose white blouse undone low enough to show considerable tanned cleavage, framed by her many necklaces. He could have known the men for clan chiefs by their manner. If Savannah was a roof mistress, she was surely nothing like Leon. Ruark strode straight to the ledge, gave his spears and buckler, his bow and quiver to his red shields, and climbed up. Rand handed his reins to Matt, who might have luck with us as he eyed the surrounding Aiel. Adeline nodded encouragingly to Rand, and stepped straight from his saddle to the ledge. A startled murmur rolled around the canyon. What do you do, Ruark? Han demanded, scowling. Bringing this wetlander here. If you will not kill him, at least send him down for standing like a chief. This man, Randall Thor, has come to speak to the chiefs of the clans. Did not the Dreamwalkers tell you that he would come with me? Ruark's words brought a louder murmur from the listeners. Merlane told me many things, Ruark, Bale said slowly, frowning at Rand. That he who comes with the dawn had come out of Rudion. You cannot mean that this man... He trailed off in disbelief. If this wetlander can speak, Savannah said quickly, so can Couladin. She lifted a smooth hand and Couladin scrambled onto the ledge, face an angry red. Han rounded on him. Stand down, Couladin. It is bad enough that Ruark violates custom without you doing it as well. It is time to be done with worn-out customs, the fiery-haired Shido shouted, stripping off his gray and brown coat. There was no need for shouting. His words echoed across the canyon. But he did not lower his voice. I am he who comes with the dawn. Shoving shirt sleeves above his elbows, he thrust his fists into the air. Around each forearm wound a serpentine creature scaled in crimson and gold, glittering metallically. Feet each tipped with 5 golden claws, golden maned heads resting on the backs of his wrists. 2 perfect dragons. I am the Karakan! The roar that came back was like thunder. Aiel leaping to their feet and shouting joyously. The Sept chiefs were on their feet too. The Tardad clustered worriedly, the others shouting as loudly as anyone. The clan chiefs looked stunned, even Ruark. Adeline and her 9 maidens hefted their spears as if they expected to use them any moment. Eyeing the gap leading out, Matt pulled his hat low and guided the 2 horses close to the ledge, motioning surreptitiously for Rand to get back into his saddle.
Yeah, cheers, bro.
Savannah smiled smugly, adjusting her shawl as Couladin strode to the front of the ledge with his arms high. I bring change, he shouted. According to the prophecy, I bring new days. We will cross the Dragon Wall again and take back what was ours. The Wetlanders are soft, but rich. You remember the wealth brought back when last we went into the wetlands? This time we will take it all. This time... Rand let the man's tirade wash over him. Of things possible, he had never suspected this.
Yeah, it's an audio book. It's usually what I play on my nighttime ones.
Slowly he took off his coat, hesitating a moment before fishing the angreal from his pocket. Sticking it into the waistband of his breeches, he dropped the coat and
Oh shit, hell yeah.
calmly undoing the laces of his sleeves.
Hey, I think it's relaxing listening to an audio book before you go to bed.
It took a moment for the assembled Aiel to notice the dragons wrapped around his arms too, shining in the sunlight. Their hush came by increments, but it was total. Savannah's mouth dropped open. She had not known of this. Obviously, Couladin had not thought Rand would follow so quickly. Had not told her another bore the markings too.
Yeah, definitely good at burning time too.
Once he had established himself,
because you get all zoned out on the book, and before you know it, half the book's gone, done been read, and a couple hours are gone by.
This prophecy said only one could be. Couladin ranted on, waving his arms to make sure all saw. We'll not stop with the lands of the Oathbreakers. We will take all the lands to the Arith Ocean. The Wetlanders cannot stand against... Suddenly he became aware of the silence where eager cries had been. He knew what had caused it. Without turning to look at Rand, he shouted, Wetlander! Look at his clothes! A Wetlander! A Wetlander, Rand agreed. He did not raise his voice, but the canyon carried him.
Right, definitely keep the mind busy.
Shido looked startled for a moment.
Definitely good for...
Then grinned triumphantly.
It'd definitely be good for doing some landscaping work.
What does the prophecy of Rhuidean say? Born of the blood. My mother was Shayin, a maiden of the Chumai Tardat. Who was she really? Where did she come from? My father was Jondwin, of the Ironmount sect, clan chief of the Tardad. My father is Tam Thor. He found me, raised me, loved me. I wish I could have known you, Jondwin. But Tam is my father. Born of the blood, but raised by those not of the blood. Where did the Wise One send to look for me? Into the holds of the Threefold Land? They sent across the Dragon Wall, where I was raised, according to the prophecy. Vale and the other three nodded slowly, but reluctantly. There was still the matter of Couladin also bearing the dragons, and doubtless they would rather have one of their own. Savannah's face had firmed. No matter who bore the real markings, there was no doubt whom she supported. Couladin's confidence never wavered. He sneered openly at Rand, the first time he had even looked at him. How long since the prophecy of Rhuidean was first spoken? He still seemed to think he had to shout. Who can say how much the words have changed? My mother was born to rise Mai before she gave up her year. How much has the rest changed? Or been changed? It is said we once served the Aes Sedai. I say they mean to bind us to them once more. This Wetlander was chosen because he resembles us. He is none of our blood. He came with Aes Sedai, leading him on a leash. And the Wise Ones greeted them as they would first sisters. You have all heard of Wise Ones who can do things beyond belief. The Dreamwalkers use the One Power to keep me from this Wetlander. They use the One Power as Aes Sedai are said to do. The Aes Sedai have brought this Wetlander here to bind us with fakery. And the Dreamwalkers help them. This is madness. Ruark stood up beside Rand, staring out at the still silent gathering. Couladin never went to Rhuidean. I heard the Wise Ones refuse him. Randolph Boer did go. I saw him leave Cheyendair, and I saw him return, marked as you see. And why did they refuse me? Couladin snarled. Because the Aes Sedai told them to. Ruark does not tell you that one of the Aes Sedai went down from Cheyendair with this wetlander. That is how he returned with the dragons. By Aes Sedai witchery. My brother Muradin died below Cheyendair, murdered by this wetlander in the Aes Sedai moraine. And the wise ones, doing Aes Sedai bidding, let them walk free. When night came, I went to Rodion. I did not reveal myself until now because this is the proper place for the Karakan to show himself. I am the Karakan. Lies, touched with just enough flecks of truth. The man was all victorious confidence. Sure he had an answer for anything. You say you went to Rodion without the permission of the wise ones? Han demanded, frowning. Towering Bael looked just as disapproving with his arms folded. Aram and Jeran only slightly less so. The clan chiefs, at least, still wavered. Savannah gripped her belt knife, glaring at Han as if she would like to drive it into his back. Couladin had his answer, though. Yes, without it. He who comes with the dawn brings change. So says the prophecy. Useless ways must change, and I will change them. Did I not arrive here at the dawn? The clan chiefs stood balanced on the edge, and so did all the watching Aiel. All on their feet now, staring silently, waiting in their thousands. If Rand could not convince them, he likely would not leave Alcair Dal alive. Matt motioned again to Jadin's saddle. Rand did not even bother to shake his head. There was a consideration beyond getting out alive. He needed these people, needed their loyalty. He had to have people who followed him because they believed, not to use him, or for what he could give them. He had to. Rhuidean, he said. The words seemed to fill the canyon. You claim you went to Rhuidean, Couladin. What did you see there? All no Rhuidean is not to be spoken of, Couladin shot back. We can go apart, Aram said, and speak in private so you can tell us. The Shadow cut him off, face flushed angrily. I will speak of it with no one. Rhuidean is a holy place, and what I saw was holy. I am holy. He raised his dragon-marked arms again. These make me holy. I walked among glass columns beside Aben Dessora. Rand spoke quietly, but the words carried everywhere. I saw the history of the Aiel through my ancestors' eyes. What did you see, Couladin? I am not afraid to speak. Are you? The Shadow quivered with rage, face nearly the color of his fiery hair. Uncertain looks passed between Bael and Aram, Jeran and Han. We must go apart for this, Han muttered. Couladin did not seem to realize he had lost his advantage with the four, but Savannah did. Ruark has told him these things, she spat. One of Ruark's wives is a dream walker, one of those who aids the Aes Sedai. Ruark has told him. Ruark would not, Han snapped at her. He is clan chief and a man of honor. Do not speak of what you do not know, Savannah. I am not afraid, Couladin shouted. No man can call me afraid. I too saw with my ancestors' eyes. I saw our coming to the Threefold Land. I saw our glory. The glory I will bring back to us. I saw the Age of Legends, Rand announced, and the beginning of the Aiel journey to the Threefold Land. Ruark caught his arm, but he shook the clan chief off. This moment had been fated since the Aiel gathered before Rhuidean the first time. I saw the Aiel when they were called the Dashane Aiel, and followed the way of the leaf. No! The shout rose from out in the canyon and spread in a roar. No! No! From thousands of throats. Spear points shaken in the air caught the sunlight. Even some of the Tardad Sept chiefs were shouting. Adeline stared up at Rand, stricken. Matt shouted something at Rand, lost in the thunder, waving urgently for him to take his saddle. Liar! The canyon's shake carried Couladin's bellow, wrath mixed with triumph over the shouts of the gathering. Shaking her head frantically, Savannah reached for him. She must at least have suspected now that he was the fake. Yet if she could keep him quiet, they might yet pull it off. As Rand hoped, Couladin pushed her away. The man knew Rand had been to Ruidian. He could not possibly believe half of his own story. But neither could he believe this. He proves himself a fraud from his own mouth. We have always been warriors. Always. To the beginning of time. The roar swelled, spears shaking. But Bale and Aaron, Jeron and Han stood in stony silence. They knew now. Unaware of their looks, Couladin waved his dragon-wreathed arms to the assembled Aiel, exulting in the adulation. Why? Rourke said softly beside Rand. Did you not understand why we do not speak of Ruidian? To face that we were once so different from everything we believed. That we were the same as the despised lost ones you call Tuatha. Ruidian kills those who cannot face it. Not more than 1 man in 3 lives who goes to Ruidian. And now you have spoken for all to hear. It cannot be stopped here, Randolph. It will be spread. How many will be strong enough to bear it? He will take you back, he will destroy you. I bring change, Rand said sadly. Not peace, but turmoil. Destruction follows on my heels everywhere. Will there ever be anywhere I do not tear apart?
I'm probably gonna call into this life right now. It's getting pretty late. Didn't realize it was that late. But I want to thank everyone for stopping by and everyone who keeps coming back by and chilling. Just appreciate all y'all's support. Till next time, everyone. Y'all stay safe out there.